I always told myself, I'm never quitting. I'm going to be here for a lifetime. So let's just enjoy the ride. But when I hear people say, well, I'm not lucky like you, I don't live down in Nashville, and lucky. I mean, I cashed in my RSPs. That's the U.S. equivalent to a 401k. I think I had one indie record to produce down here. I had no money basically after a few months. The RSP money did not last long. I had a terrible game plan when I moved to the United States. On top of that, the O1 visa cost me $5,000. That's the first one, not the second one. And the green card, those tallied to $19,000. Yeah, I'm lucky.
All right, ladies and gents, gather round, gather round. We got value going once, truth going twice. Sold for a song. That's right, folks. Rights signed away, data given away, pennies on the play. Publishing, gone. Credit, missing. Ownership, kiss it goodbye. 50 pages of catch-22s, no dice. You can't eat a like, a follow, or a view. Sold for a song. But wait now, hold your bids, hold your breath. Here comes the truth louder than the bass line. Time to take it back, where the artists rise, the system shakes, and the silence finally breaks.
Welcome to Sold for a Song, the transformative podcast that dissects the music industry's long-standing practice of undervaluing its most essential contributors. Yes, we're talking songwriters and artists. In each episode, we'll delve into the journey of recognizing and elevating the true worth and value of music creators, discover how the industry has exploited creators, and learn actionable strategies to revolutionize this trend and take control of your career. Hello, podcast land. I'm Terrence Sawchuk, but you can call me Terry. After 30 plus years in the trenches of the music industry, trust me, I've seen it all. The highs, the heartbreaks, and the resilience it takes to succeed as a creator. Here's what I've learned. Awakening your self-worth, owning and leveraging your value, and streamlining the process to free up the time we need to do what we most love to do, which is create. That's what stands between you and the freedom we're all chasing. All right, before we dive in, if you believe in empowering artists and redefining what it means to thrive creatively, do me a favor, subscribe, leave a quick review, and share this episode with someone who truly needs it. That one click helps more than you know. And if you want to go deeper, join me at terrencesawchuk.com to be a part of the community and follow all of my endeavors for exclusive content and updates. Good morning via Music City. No? Crickets? Nothing? That's what I get, nothing, on this kind of drab Tuesday in Nashville, Tennessee. We are going to lighten things up, though, with the conversation of entitlement versus accountability. Who says we don't know how to party here at Sold for a Song podcast? All right, let's get into it. All right, there's a fine line between confidence and entitlement, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about why so many artists are stuck on the wrong side of that line, and how accountability might just be the bridge that takes you to the next level. Today, we're going to dive into something that's uncomfortable but very necessary: entitlement versus accountability. Because if you're not where you want to be in your career, there's a good chance it's not the algorithms, not your manager, not your mom, not the audience's fault. It might come down to one of three things. Russell Brunson, who's a marketing guru that I've followed for years, he frames it as your hook, your story, or your offer. One or more of those things are holding you back and getting your message across, or in this case, selling your actual music and making a sustainable living from it. So we're living in an era where artists expect success to come from exposure because of social media, or call it American Idol generation, believing that if enough people just hear the music, everything will click. But exposure doesn't fix a weak foundation, or as we say in the business, you can't polish a turd. It only amplifies what is already there. A lot of artists are chasing validation, not mastery, trying to make it instead of trying to make it better. They believe they're being slept on, when in reality, they're not capturing, connecting, or converting through their art. Because the truth is, if people aren't connecting, maybe you're not giving them a place to find themselves in your music, or simply be entertained. If you want people to listen to your music, you have to include them. If your audience can't find themselves in your story, it's not their fault for not getting it. It's up to you to communicate it better. Tell your story in a way that connects with their story. Now, I'm going to break this down in more of a dry marketing kind of framework, but I think it's important to get this point across. So, let's break it down through Russell Brunson's lens, the hook, story, offer, because this applies to artists more than most realize. The hook, this is what grabs attention. For you, it could be your cover art, a video clip, or even the first 3 seconds of your social post. It's not just your backstory, it's the emotional journey that lets the listener find their own reflection in your experience. The offer, this is what you're actually giving, your music, your world, your energy. You might have a great hook, your visuals and vibe draw people in, but your story doesn't hold them because it's too self-centered or vague. Or your story might be solid, but your offer, the music itself, doesn't deliver an emotional payoff. Or maybe your music is great, but no one is seeing it because your hook is weak and your social media skills suck. Or you're just lazy. That's the worst. That's the killer. Entitlement simply says, I'm talented, so I deserve success. Where accountability says, if people aren't connecting, I'm missing something. So entitlement waits for the industry to recognize them. Accountability creates undeniable resonance. Sinatra always said, you create your own luck. So entitlement points the finger. Accountability asks questions. And here's something I've seen over decades in the music business. You can be a singer, a producer, or a musician, but only history decides if you're an artist or you're entertaining. Being an artist isn't a title you give yourself. It's earned through how deeply your work moves people. It's not about how perfectly you play or how big your voice is. It's about how someone else feels when they experience it. And I believe that's what separates performance from purpose. So there are a lot of ways to figure out if things are going well or not with your music. And the best one is, I think, is to check your bank account. So it usually has a story to tell. If it's not telling you the story you want to hear, then you got to go digging. All right, so the challenge this week for all of my creators out there is do an entitlement accountability assessment on yourself. Am I capturing attention? Am I connecting emotionally? Does my music land with people? Does it stink? Like, where or why is the bank account not where you want it to be? That's basically what I'm trying to say. Results don't care about your feelings. We hear this all the time now. So if you're not getting the result that you want, you have to keep digging and be accountable. Figure out where you, not your mom, is wrong, basically, or is just not at the place where you're turning over the results that you want. So it's not a beat yourself up session. Do not confuse this with beating yourself up. Remember last week how I said that the ability to sustain a music career will be tied directly to your ability to be real with your authentic self, unapologetically creative and fearless. I want you to be more analytical with this and say, okay, I don't have the social media followers, I don't have the email lists, I don't have the music streams, and therefore I don't have a sustainable living, so it makes this difficult to do. So where am I missing something in one or more of those areas? Don't forget, we are in this social media / American Idol generation where in the past artists just got in a car or van or bus and traveled endlessly across the country playing shows, getting sick often because it's kind of like being in a classroom. When one is sick, the others become sick. Bad beds, bad food. You know, the prices that artists would traditionally pay is done in a different form now. So your nasty road trips, and if you don't know what a band house is, trust me, you don't want to know, but it's the place that like clubs would keep for the band to stay in, let's just say. And there would be all kinds of nastiness happening in band houses. You might leave with more than you showed up with, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, if you've never experienced that kind of stuff, then your new road and place to pay your dues is social media. It's online and reaching people. So if you're not getting the results, something is missing. How you attack those tasks will determine on how you come out of it. So if you go into it with an entitlement frame of mind, as opposed to an accountable frame of mind, both are going to turn extremely different results. if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me for advice on their songs, God, I'd have a lot of extra dollars. But often it comes from a place of where people are questioning themselves, and it's almost like they need that validation from somebody in the industry. Like, let me know if I'm good enough so I'll pursue this if I am. That's not always the case, but often the case where myself or most lifers, as I like to call us, we don't care. We're gonna do this anyway. We don't really care what somebody's opinion is at the end of the day. Although, it's great to hear and get the validation, of course. I mean, who doesn't want to hear that? But that's not the driving force. I always told myself, I'm never quitting. I'm going to be here for a lifetime. So let's just enjoy the ride. But when I hear people say, well, I'm not lucky like you, I don't live down in Nashville, and lucky. I mean, I cashed in my RSP. That's the Canadian equivalent to a US 401k. I think I had one indie record to produce down here. I had no money basically after a few months. The RSP money did not last long. I had a terrible game plan when I moved to the United States. On top of that, the O1 visa cost me $5,000. That's the first one, not the second one. And the green card, those tallied to $19,000. Yeah, I'm lucky. I slugged it out for 18 years in Toronto, and then, made the move to the U.S. blindly. When I look back at my game plan, it was a terrible game plan, but, I got through it. So if you walk into something with an entitled frame of mind, you're done. You're toast. And you are not the people that we celebrate in the end. It's probably not going to be your music that is being celebrated and enjoyed by everybody. That is reserved for the people with a much different dialogue. I mentioned in one of my journals, newsletters, I call it the Sold for a Song Journal. Shameless plug. Sign up for the journal at soldforasong.com. That's the number 4, not the word 4. Thank you very much. Where I give out all kinds of fun stuff and tips and solutions and funny stories. But one of those stories was when I was going through one of my victim mentality stages, and I had the opportunity to write some songs for Steven Tyler. And I couldn't drum up the confidence to put something together, was having that woe is me victim mentality. And, our mutual friend that was going to play the songs for him said, Steven doesn't talk like you. And that hit me like a truck. And I thought, oh my God, the difference between me and Steven Tyler wasn't necessarily an ability thing. It was a dialogue thing. It was what I was putting out to the world. And that was a big eye opener for me. So call it victimhood, call it entitlement, call it whatever you want. But if you're not being accountable, you are going to have a lot of trouble. Dan Sullivan, who's an entrepreneur coach that I'm a huge fan of, frames it like this. And he says, confidence is the byproduct of courage. So it's actually courage that gets you through. It's what breaks you through the fear. Confidence is just the byproduct and the result of having the courage. Confidence is waiting for you on the other side of already making the effort. None of these things can be done from a frame of mind like entitlement or victimhood. Only accountability, only courage will bring you to confidence. So if you want to try catching yourself and seeing if you are falling into that land of entitlement, just notice if you are complaining a lot, or if you are blaming your music career problems on other people. Somebody else is the reason I'm not getting somewhere. Another byproduct of that is comparison. So the reason that person is successful is because they're good looking, or it's because they have a wealthy uncle or a cousin that works at Sony Music, or pick your excuse. It will never work. All it's going to do is rob you of time, energy, and effort. In fact, when I look back and I look at all the amazing artists that I've worked with over the years, the ones that became uber successful, I mean, this kind of dialogue never entered their mouth. But I can tell you that the majority of artists I've worked with, the 98% of people I've ever been with in the studio that didn't last long, that often was the dialogue. And of course, this is just my experience. Opinions are free and they're usually not worth the money. So there you go, folks. Entitlement versus accountability. We have to sit down with ourselves and get real and see why we're not getting the results that we want to get, and then dissect our, call it your hook, story, offer. I really don't care what framework, how you choose to look at it, but it's your social media, it's your delivery of content, it is your actual music, your live performance, your show. Is it entertaining? All I can tell you is this, that the fans, the universe will come back and mirror what it is that you are putting out into the world. Thank you so much for taking time out of your valuable time out of your day to come and listen to this podcast each week. It truly means the world to me. Thank you so much. If today's episode lit a fire in you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to Sold for a Song, leave a review, and be the spark that helps others discover their own worth. And if you're ready to go deeper, my upcoming book and Artist Accelerator course are all waiting for you inside my private portal. Visit TerrenceSawchuk.com. Let's build this movement together.